I've always liked SSL channel strips, the way they operate. They've always been like my first choice for sort of channel strippy type stuff. And the first one I got was the Slate Digital one, and I still like it. The EQ, and now they've got the dynamics as well. It's cool. Then I got the Plugin Alliance one, and I like that even more. Just seemed to sound great to me, a little bit more functionality. And then I got the SSL one as part of the Slate Digital, what is it, All Access Pass. You get the SSL stuff. It took me a while to install it, but when I did, I thought, brilliant, great, straight from the horse's mouth, this is going to be the ultimate SSL. And then it didn't sound the way that I thought it was going to. And that's how this video started off, with kind of a comparison between the three and how I didn't really like the SSL that much. But then I got to twiddling and I got to moving stuff around, and I realised that on the SSL one and the Plugin Alliance one, there's a little feature there that completely, and I mean completely, changes the sound of them, and it's just crazy. And you can change the way that the EQ responds, and I just want to show you how flexible these really are. I've got them on a snare drum. It's a little bit of a shootout. It's a little bit of a, was I that stupid thinking that they didn't have more strings to their bow? I don't know. Let's take a listen to the three, and then we'll discuss some of the differences and this special feature. So this is the SSL on the first channel. This is the Plugin Alliance. This is the Slate one. They've all got the exact same settings. I've got 100 Hz and 9 dB boost. Then I've got like a mid-range boost, 5K at 6 dB, and then 7 dB up at 10K. They're all the same, 10K, see that, exactly the same. The compressors are set the same as well. Let's take a listen to the differences and just kind of discuss them. So SSL first, then Plugin Alliance, then Slate. Now, one thing that the eagle-eyed among you will have noticed is that I'm clipping these. I'm clipping the input and the output of this one, and I'm clipping the overloads coming on that one. But that's part of a charm of these plugins, that you can do that, and because they work at floating point, etc., you're not actually killing anything. But the one thing that occurs to me is that the SSL kind of craps out pretty easily, pretty quickly, far more than the other two. Now, all the tracks is exactly the same, everything else is exactly the same. I can only assume that the Slate one is probably clipping as well, but it doesn't have any kind of meters that are telling me that. But the SSL one sounded very, very different, especially in the low end. Listen to it when compared to the Plugin Alliance one, so SSL first, then Plugin Alliance. Okay, now on these you can change the order of stuff. I've not changed any orders, so I can only assume they're going to be exactly the same. So I've got the EQ then going into the dynamics, and the EQ going to the dynamics here. I'm not doing any crazy routing. I've got EQ first, then dynamics there. So they're going to be the same. But the thing that occurred to me was that it was in the low end, and that was the difference. So I kind of got fiddling, and I realised that there's a function in there which lets you shape the bottom end in it is a great way, but some of them just, to me, don't sound like they should do. Let me show you what I mean. So on the SSL, for example, we've got these buttons here, and we're on the black low end EQ at the moment. If I click the black button, it goes to brown. If I click the orange button, it goes to orange. So we've got three different flavors there. On the Plugin Alliance, we can be black or we can go to brown. Now, some bright spark, I would love for you to tell me the exact differences of them. I've had a little bit of a read, and yeah, it seemed like there was loads of difference, but I can't remember what it is. So please do tell me in the comments. But what I really want to do is actually take a listen to the sound, because on some of these, it's not really that, I don't want to say it's not usable, but it just completely changes what I want from an SSL. When I think about an SSL EQ, I remember seeing a Crystal Algae video where he was like, yeah, crank the top end, crank the low end on snare, that's your snare sound. And I love that. I think it's great, and that's exactly what I do. But as soon as you change it to these other EQs, that kind of goes out the window. So let's take a listen to the SSL first off, and let's just flick between these different EQ types. So we'll start with black, then brown, then orange, then black to black, black to black. We'll go back to black. Okay. To me, that black one is just the pinnacle. That is amazing. It sounds great. It's got that fat low end. It's kind of crapping out, as I said, but in comparison to the other two, that is what it's all about. In the Plugin Alliance one, it's slightly different. So start off with the black, then go to brown. On the Plugin Alliance, the brown one feels more focused. It feels like there's a bit more in the bottom end, so go black to brown again. Now, to my ear, I'm actually changing the high frequency there as well in some way, but the colours don't change, so my stupid tiny brain isn't really making that association, but it definitely sounds like it is. So let's just listen to this. So in that one, the brown one was the most focused. In this one, the black one seems the most focused. So let me just kind of confirm what I'm saying here. I feel like they're doing the same thing, but I feel like the feel is very, very different. I feel like going from black to brown on one kind of does the opposite that it does on the other one. Let's look at some curves and we'll see exactly what this low end thing is actually doing. So first of all, we're on the SSL, and just ignore that pulsing, that's just the way it works. We're on the brown EQ and we're doing some, well, you can see what we're doing. It's a relatively broad boost at just above 100 and then a nice kind of peak up in the high mids and the high end. As soon as I change that to the brown one though, sorry, the black one, it gets way more focused. And the top end kind of gets a bit more focused as well. Just a little bit. Orange just sends it crazy. I don't like that. It's far too like broad, and it just doesn't really sound like the low end that I was wanting to add. I'm sure it has its uses. I'm not knocking it entirely, but for me, the sound of SSL is not the orange EQ. For you, it may be. So that's on black, nice and focused. That's on brown, not as focused. So on the Plugin Alliance one, the black one is really focused, but then the brown one is not as focused. So we've got both on the brown here. This is the Plugin Alliance one, and this is the SSL, both on brown. Kind of broad, and then we'll go to black. And we get really focused. So that's fine. But why doesn't it sound the same? It doesn't really sound that similar to me. It sounds like one of them is kind of doing the opposite, which is weird. But this is a really useful feature. Being able to actually zone in on specific frequencies using that bottom end is nice. And just avoid the orange one. Has anyone got any uses for that, for the orange one? I don't know. To me, it just kind of sounds like you're broadening everything out so much that it stops being that EQ. Just broadens everything out. But to me, this is useful for a couple of reasons. On drums, I'm going to love that black EQ. That's great. If you're going for like a bass or something, then I can see how having a different type of EQ, but in the same kind of family, is going to be useful. I still don't know if I like this SSL channel strip though. To me, it feels like it craps out far too early. It feels like it gets really blobby really soon in its kind of life. I like the Plugin Alliance one. It's cool. And the Slate one just kind of feels like home to me because I'm so used to using it. It just kind of feels like a bit of a comfort blanket having it there. But give some of these a try. If you've got one of them, try all of them, because as we've found, SSL channel strips don't all sound the same. Even though they're all on the black EQ or on the brown EQ or whatever it is, they all sound completely different. And that's kind of a unique thing in plugin manufacturers. They'll all model the same thing and they'll get a completely different outcome, which is cool. So it's more kind of colors in your palette, I guess. But to me, the SSL just didn't sound like what I thought an SSL was going to sound like. I've worked on SSLs before, not an E series, not like the massive ones. but they do sound cool and they are great and they do have that punchy EQ. But to me, the SSL, official SSL emulation, didn't quite do what I was expecting it to do. But your mileage may vary, so please do let me know. But until then, I'll see you again soon. Take care.